of the Dalit History Month, and of course, a commemoration of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's legacy. As a part of this event, we have about 5 events. We have 2 panel discussions. One of them is right here, right now. We have one open mic cultural night on 14th to celebrate the birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And of course, we have an interview with Mr. Praveen Kumar, IPS, which is scheduled, if I'm not mistaken, on 13th of April. Yep. And last but not the least, we have a collaboration with the National Law Institute, University Bhopal, and its Center for Knowledge called Manthan. And it's a panel discussion with Mr. Anurag Bhaskar and Aruh Akunt. The panel is aptly titled "How to Be an Ally in Times of Right-wing Politics." So that's kind of like the overview of what Dalit Fest is really kind of doing this year. It's our first time to conducting a month-long celebration of Dalit history and Ambedkar Jayanti. So yeah, with that being said, I'll just go right into the panel and introduce you to the illustrious panelists that we have today. I mean, I don't really need to introduce them at all, but I'll give my best. Starting off with Yashika Dutt. Yashika Dutt is an alum of St. Stephen's Delhi University and Columbia University. She has been recently awarded with the, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pronouncing it right, Sahitya Akademi Puraskar for her book coming out as Dalit. She's currently based in New York and working as a journalist. So welcome, Yashika. Thank you for doing this. I know it's really early in New York, but thank you for doing this. On the other hand, we have Dipankar Kamble, who is a fellow law student and inspiration for most of us, and also a source of envy. While we can't even make our projects on time, he's writing a book and getting all the awards that he's getting. So well-deserved. His book is called Devaji, Making of the Ambedkarite Family, which talks about Ambedkarite lifestyle and Ambedkarite thought. So welcome, Dipankar. Thank you for doing this again. I know you are also very busy, but thank you for joining us tonight for this panel and opening the Dalit Fest in the manner that we are going to do. I'll also take a very short, brief time to introduce you to the moderator for tonight. We have Mr. Abhishek Ashakumar. He's my senior at NLS, and also one of the founding members of Savitri Phule Ambedkar Caravan. So yes, he's the brain behind SPAC, at least a part of the brain. So welcome everybody. Hope you enjoy this. Hope to see you all for all the other panels that we're having, all the other events that we're having as a part of Dalit Fest. Happy Dalit History Month. And now I'll just pass on the mic to Abhishek.
Hello, everybody. Without further ado, I'll just welcome Yashika and Dipankar.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Please.
I just want to say a few words. First of all, congratulations, SPAC. You guys are doing an incredible job. I said that a few minutes ago, but I think it bears repeating that the most resistance that we see in our country in Dalit Bahujan spaces comes from students. And I have had the absolute joy and pleasure of attending many student organized Dalit Bahujan events, which are far better than any mainstream news channel, journalist organized events. The questions are thoughtful, provocative, and I'm so happy and excited to be a part of this. And there is no better joy than to be in a Dalit Bahujan space in Dalit History Month, where I don't have to questions about why Dalits are sad, why we have pain, why our condition is so terrible. We just understand, and there's this wonderful feeling of solidarity. Very happy to be sharing the stage with Dipankar, and thank you so much for having me a part of this. And also at Sahitya Akademi Yuva Puraskar, the big one is, I didn't get that, I got the Yuva one, but you know, as long as they're calling me youths, that's great.
So, Dipankar, if you have anything to share, please go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just delve directly into the questions because our audience is equally excited to hear them.
Sure. Am I audible now?
Yeah, Dipankar.
Yeah. So, first of all, I'll thank Savitri Phule Ambedkar Caravan for giving me this opportunity with none other than Yashika Dutt. So I would really like to thank Yashashvi, Abhishek, and Anmol for coordinating and giving me the opportunity. And I really look forward to this conversation.
Sure. All right. So The very first question I want to ask to both of you, all the questions will be answered, pinpointed directly to both of you. Please choose, please feel free, whoever wants to answer. First question is, please share your journey with us. Please tell us where you have been, where you are now, and where you see yourself from hereafter. Please tell. Yashika, if you can go first.
Sure, absolutely. So I've been talking about my journey for 6 years now, but I'll keep it really brief. I was born and raised in lower caste Bhangi family in Ajmer in Rajasthan. I had the privilege, our family had the privilege of snatching education away from the clutches of Savarna mainstream education system that wants to keep us out for 2 generations. We have 2 generations of education privilege before me. And as a result of that, my grandfather was able to crack the administrative services in Rajasthan. And, I grew up in particular with this idea that, first of all, even within Dalits and Bahujans, we understand that there is a descending order of contempt, right? So there was this idea that, as Ambedkar said, descending order of contempt. So I grew up with this idea that you have to hide who you are. Even just saying SC was acceptable, but saying Bhangi is not acceptable. Saying the word Bhangi, and I've said that on many forums, it still sends a little bit of a shiver down my spine. And I've said this word on many international forums. I've said it on BBC. I've said it to The Guardian. But still, when I say Bhangi, just, that shame keeps kicking back. So I grew up with this idea that you have to hide who you are. And I realized that the one way to do that would be through English. And I know, we're going to talk about this later, but, to kind of make myself identify as an upper class person, even though I was neither. We grew up with very limited financial resources. We were definitely not upper caste, but I grew up hiding my identity. There's a long way to put that. And I grew up lying about my caste. And I understand for a lot of folks who grew up in a very different kind of spirited Ambedkarite Bahujan movement, this might seem strange. Why would you hide your caste? But for a lot of us who don't have even the privilege of activism in our families or in our nearby immediate surroundings, that becomes a necessity. It's a necessity to survive. And then I became a journalist. I started writing, and I chose something that was as far away from Dalit Bahujan identity as possible: fashion culture. Because I assumed that if you work in fashion, there are no Dalits in fashion, or weren't, at least until 2014, or openly so. So people would just assume I would be upper caste. And I spent my whole life trying to construct this alternate identity. And I've written about this in the book, where it was like a burden. It was like a dead animal that I was carrying on my back. And by the end of it, the dead animal and my back became one, and it was difficult to distinguish which was which. So that's where I come from. And I had the opportunity, because I had the cultural capital that I had acquired in those years, to be able to apply to places like Columbia. Nobody in my family so far had access to international education. I didn't even know what to do. So I had to ask colleagues who had done that. So I'm saying these things so we understand exactly how cultural capital and privilege works, right? And after I moved to the US is where I had to stop being a Dalit person. I had to stop. What I mean by that is I had the freedom to not be just my caste. I had the freedom to not either hide it or trying to pretend to be upper caste or try and construct this whole identity. And that's when I, in a very, unfortunate way, that's when I discovered my true Dalitness. And like many of us who are listening already know, that came into full focus with the unfortunate loss of
Dipankar Kamble.
Just 1 second.
So no worries. This is the world we live in, Zoom. So yeah, that came with the loss of Rohit's death, and that made me realize that if there are students who are in India who are putting their lives online, who are putting themselves, their bodies online to stand up for the truth, to stand up for what they think is right. What can I do as a journalist, as a storyteller? So I started a Tumblr called Documents of Dalit Discrimination, and that led to a collection of stories where we could just share our own narratives without the mainstream media interfering and telling us we don't matter, or we should only focus on reservation, we should only focus on trauma, we should only focus on politics. I just want to talk about Dalit lived experiences, and that led to the book. And that's where I am. Where I'm going from here, we'll see. Over to you, Dipankar.
Sure. So I'll start with how, like, my background and how my journey began, and how did this book came up. So I actually come from a very hardcore Ambedkarite family. I live in Nagpur, so you can imagine that what vibe does Nagpur have. Like 5 generation from me has worked in the Dalit movement and Ambedkarite movement. Like, my great grandmother was the first Dalit woman entrepreneur in India. So then from her, when my great grandfather came into politics, he rubbed his shoulder with none other than the mightiest of our leaders, Dr. Ambedkar, and he was his lieutenant in the Vidarbha region, where Chandrapur, Nagpur, and other parts of these rural parts like Brahmapuri, Chandrapur, Amravati, and all this fall. So then in 1947, actually, my great-grandfather went to meet Dr. Ambedkar, and he asked him to send his son to abroad for higher education. And so Dr. Ambedkar asked him that you are an entrepreneur, you can afford your fees, so you should send your son on bearing his expenses. So Dr. Ambedkar's word was none less than a command for my great grandfather. So he decided to send his son abroad and do law. So my grandfather did barrister from Lincoln's Inn at London. So then, actually, when he came back to India, then Dr. Ambedkar asked my great grandmother that you should give this. You have 5 sons, and you should give one to me for the moment. And then my grandfather entered the politics, and he rose to become deputy chairman of Rajya Sabha. So that's the entire journey of my family, and I wasn't really interested till 10th. I was a very notorious student in my school, and I was never interested in politics or any of the activism or anything. So when actually in 9th, 10th, I started taking interest in this because some instances happened which shook my conscience. So then I started taking interest, and then the journey began. And last year I actually texted. Last year when I discovered the anti history, and then so I text Yogesh that I sent Yogesh a book on my grandfather, which was in Marathi. He always keeps very busy because he runs his own independent publication house, and he has his own PhD to complete. So he never got time to actually read and do something on that book. So then I took the charge in my own hand, and I decided that I should at least write an introductory part of the family, because not only that I am a descendant, but this history of my family has been very proud, and could have been an example for many of us, because as I feel that leaders and social people don't have any descendants. Everyone from the community should claim and can claim them. So yeah, then the book came up, and it's received pretty well, because I didn't expect actually it will get a response as it did. So yeah, that's the entire journey, and I don't know that what's going to be next.
All right. I think we have a common clue between most of us and why we have, let's say, have felt the need to come out and struggle out of this struggle and protest or just say, let's say, organize ourselves. We saw the sudden demise of, I will not say demise, it was an institutional murder of Rohit Vemula, and it was the kickstart for most of us, even for me, and how we saw it. Uh, Very well explained by both of you. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the second question. Uh, so, in your work, Yashika, as per my understanding, you seem to imply that education and English language could have been one of the sources through which you could have made some difference. You could have hidden your identity. While Dipankar suggests that it is the educational pursuit coupled with a strong financial background that could have made a difference and that could have actually changed your life as a Dalit Bahujan. Could you please shed some light on these two inferences for our audience? And what would be the best tool to overcome or to be comfortable in today's world with your identity as a Dalit Bahujan? Please.
Yeah, I can take this. So, I thought about this question when you sent it to me, and I want to say one thing. We don't have to be comfortable with a Dalit Bahujan identity. This is who we are. There is nothing wrong with, there is no sense of shame. There is nothing wrong with being Dalit. There is nothing wrong with being Bahujan. The onus is not on us to be comfortable with who we are. The onus is on them to unconditionally accept our equality. So I understand where your question is coming from, and I respect it from a practical point of view. But let's start there for all our Savarna allies. And, I read this wonderful comment by Buffalo Intellectual, the bar to be an ally is very high if you're a Savarna person. So if you're listening, think about this. Why are Dalits and Bahujans still being asked this question about how we can be comfortable with being Dalit and Bahujan? Shouldn't it be a given? Isn't it a given that a Brahmin person is comfortable in India? Isn't it a given that a Kshatriya person, a Baniya person is comfortable in this society? So why are we being asked this question? And I respect, this is not about the question. It's about this idea that why do we even have to go there?
Exactly.
The reason we have to go there is because we are made to feel shame in our identities. We are made to feel that this is something we need to overcome. Because institutionally and structurally, for thousands of years, we have been held back. So let's start there. If you are a Dalit and Bahujan person listening to me right now, think about this. Why do you feel this shame? This shame is not yours. This shame is forced on you. This shame has been made to, it's our casteist legacy that has been given to us. They didn't give us land. They didn't give us resources. They didn't give us education. They gave us shame. So that's not ours to keep. We just need to unburden ourselves. Education, yes. English speaking, yes. Money, capital, yes. But why are these and why should these be limiting factors in the, unambiguous equality of people? These factors should not matter. And unfortunately, and like I said, I totally respect and understand your questions. They do, because this is the society that we have been given. This is the world. This is the Indian social and cultural system that we live in. So going from there, if you are a Dalit person, if you are a Bahujan person, unburden yourself of the shame first. Understand that there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with being the descendant of a manual scavenger. There is nothing wrong with being the descendant of somebody who collects dead bodies. There is nothing wrong with being the descendant of somebody who washes clothes for a living or who cleans toilets. You are worthy, and there is nothing wrong with you. Having said that, one thing that you should keep in mind is the only way out of us, because this society is not going to give us anything. We will keep asking, and they're not going to be altruistic and give it to us on their own. We have to stand up and grab it. We have to stand up and take it from them, take what is rightfully ours. So for what that you need to do is understand who you are, understand what Dalit Bahujan identity first means. Educate yourself, read Ambedkar. It doesn't need to be said, but read Ambedkar. Forget all Indian intellectuals. read Ambedkar first, top to bottom. Because what Ambedkar did for me, I had not read Ambedkar till I was 29 years old. And I'm sure to Dipankar's family, with generational access to Ambedkar's legacy, people like them might find it really strange. But for people who come from a very different worldview, this is our reality. We don't have access to Ambedkar. And I'm sure many of you who are listening don't have access to Ambedkar, because Ambedkar is the new symbol of casteist shame. In many places in Maharashtra, in many places in India, they say Jai Bhim Wale aa gaye. So what does Jai Bhim Wale mean? They can't call us Bhangi, Chura, Chamar anymore, which they do, by the way, sometimes to our face, sometimes behind us. But they are trying to alienate us. They're trying to single us out by pointing our connection to Ambedkar. So while at the same time, the government, that's all I'm going to say, is trying to appropriate his imagery. Their minions, their people, their followers are trying to alienate us for using that imagery of Ambedkar. So those are the things you need to understand and really embrace Ambedkar as your own. Don't think that just because it's a political identity, you have to identify a certain way. When I read Ambedkar for the first time, that was the first time in my life I understood that I was an equal. Before that, until 29 years, I really believed in this idea that my identity as a Bhangi woman growing up in a small town in India was something that I needed to overcome, that I needed to be ashamed of it. When I read Ambedkar is when he unconditionally said, you are equal, period. Whether you can speak English, whether you know how to read, whether you live in a village or an urban area, whether you clean toilets with your bare hands, you are equal. And that's what we need to understand and remember first. Whether you know how to read English or not, understand that you are a worthy equal person, regardless of where you come from.
All right. Dipankar,
Yes,
so
yes.
be proud of who you are.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. So I totally agree with Yashika, and the main point which she raised, that it has its privilege that to be born a Dalit in Vidarbha region of Nagpur, because here we openly shout slogans like Jai Bhim and all. And I would like to share an anecdote that when I passed 10th standard, I went to Kota, from the state where Yashika comes.
One of the most casteist places in the country, by the way, Kota,
exactly.
Rajasthan.
Yeah. So I went to Kota for preparing for IIT. So there I went to a shop, and the very same moment I got a call from my grandfather, and the first word I said was Jai Bhim Dada, and the entire gaze in that room just like like it was like they must have heard this for the first time in their life. Yeah. So, and also like we know that Dr. Ambedkar went to UP because there was some resistance, some caste resistance. He went everywhere, but Rajasthan was the place where he was opposed like anything. And now like Bhavan Meghavanshi has come, Anurag has come, Yashika has come. So now the Rajasthan has taken the anti-caste discourse, and so yeah, I agree with her. And also to the question that I actually never suggested that it should be coupled with financial upliftment. I said that when we attain something, you should chase for financial upliftment, because like I gave example that when my great grandfather met Dr. Ambedkar, he could send his son because he had financial independence. Yeah. So in coming generation, when this regime will go against us, then we should have a social and economic capital on which we can bank upon. The entire community should bank upon. So that was my suggestion, and I totally agree that English and all do help in breaking the ceiling. But yeah, financially, because what happened is what I observed in the Delhi-based circle and all, that there was a lot of romanticization with communist people and socialist people. Now, our people also started shouting "Azadi, Azadi" and all. So, and the entire communist aesthetic and all, our people also started wearing those kurtas and that fata purana gamcha. That also, this was very disturbing actually, because Yeah, why? How can you talk about communism when your son is hungry at home, and you should strive for it, like you should break the ceiling there, because caste system in India hasn't allowed our brothers, sisters, and our folks to earn money. Caste system has denied us money. Caste system has denied us land. Caste system has denied us social capital, because these people, like the Savarna people, Brahmins, Banyas, Kshatriya, they have social capital in their areas. Like Kshatriyas have social capital in military, Brahmins have social capital in uh, law,
Everywhere.
everywhere in
Everywhere.
law, etc.
Everywhere.
Banyas have capital in the corporate world, and what they expect is we should have our capital in manual scavenging and all. So to make and they don't want to come here, but we want to go there, right? So we what I suggested was, when we do something like we study in law school and we study in business school, we study engineering, we should aim for becoming a economically capital society where we can help each other, like they did in, like you our law students are familiar uh, with the like the gangs we see in the high court, and what access our people have in those gangs. So that's what I suggested in my book, indirectly, like not directly, that we should strive for economic capital where we can build it as a social capital, where we help each other and we make it to right now there is no single senior advocate in the Supreme Court. And when I asked this question to Soli Sorabji, and he wasn't able to answer, he just skipped the question, and the other, like the person who was passing the mic, he made me sit. So these people, they aren't accountable. So starting Pan India Ambedkarite Law Student Forum was, we all are a part of it. Abhishek, Anmol, Yashashvi, we all are part of it. The reason why I started it was, we should build our social capital, because tomorrow if I get a case, like Dipankar gets a case, and he gets a case of insolvency or white collar crime or something, and then I like Abhishek will be an expert in white collar crime or insolvency cases. So I'll be able to pass it to him. I should be able to pass it to him that you go to Abhishek, like the upper caste do. They give it to their fellow upper caste advocates and all. So that should be our economic capital, which will eventually turn into a social capital for us.
Exactly.
So that's what.
Yeah. So be proud of who you are. Don't be ashamed of your identity.
And actually, what I mean to say is, our ancestors didn't made anyone slaves, and we didn't like exploit anyone. So we should be proud. We are the people who should be proud of themselves.
Exactly. So I think Anmol wanted to convey some message. Please go ahead, Anmol.
Yeah, so I agree with both the points, like both the panelists. I just wanted to say, like, economic social capital, yes, especially in my generation, I can speak of that. I come from a middle class Dalit family. My dad is a civil servant. My parents have been educated. My mother is a PhD holder. So I come from a very educated family and well-to-do family. But even then, I have this onus of justifying my position in society. And even when I entered law school, I had to justify the fact that I'm taking the seat with my right, and not because of getting certain privilege of having a reservation category, right? And I remember this one instance I want to share, which basically happened in first year, right at the end of the first year, when I got this opportunity to go to London for a summer course at LSE. Ironically, it was a human rights course, and I studied basically everything about human rights. And I came back and had to justify the fact that I could afford that course, while literally, and it's not just ironically, it's not just to the Savarna people you have to justify. You have to also justify to the Dalit and the Bahujan community to a certain extent, like how you can have that economic capital or that social capital. So I think being proud also comes with the fact that you have to stop justifying your social, economic status, capital, or whatever. The moment you stop doing that, and especially the Savarna people, they have no right to ask you any questions about your social and economic capital, no right at all. So when they do that, I mean, just don't. I genuinely just said I can afford it just because I can afford it. It's none of your business. So yeah, that was the point. But I agree with both the panelists.
Thanks, Anmol. Thanks so much. There are myths and myths to be discussed about what happens inside Dalit politics as well, and what happens with, let's say, between Dalits also, which can be done in next talk whenever we can schedule it. Let's move on to the next question. I have been following, let's say, Dalit politics for a while. I had watched a documentary in which we could see Vilas Bhogre singing in front of the crowd. I could see Rohit Vemula on when only once he passed away. I read JV Pawar because of my, let's say, my upbringing, that I should read him. And I moved on to Om Prakash Valmiki, where I could find my pride. Let's think about it. That there appears to be distinct understanding of Dalitality according to us, which is basically very important for the Dalit Bahujans today. So one such understanding lies in this very, let's say, attribute that we have been talking about, that is of shame, and where a person actually has to battle out and come out as a Dalit, just like the theme of the book which Yashika has wrote. And on the other hand, there are others who actually wear Dalit pride upon their sleeves, walk through the Vidarbha region, just like Dipankar mentioned, because they're exposed life to the society. They're proud of who they are. Considering the diversity between Dalit Bahujans in India, I'm of the opinion that there are two approaches. All right. So I have two questions particularly. First one is, how do you feel the larger movement could reconcile these positions of difference? Because there are already so many fractions among us. And second question is that what would be your advice to those who are yet to come out, to those who are yet to find a solution, to those who are still feeling ashamed of it, of their Dalitality? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I can take this as well. This is probably the first time I'm talking about this. So I really do appreciate this question a lot. I get this all the time, that I am a fake Dalit, that I am a Christian Dalit, which, I mean, the Christians have a huge problem with caste. And there are our own brethren, there are our own people who converted and didn't escape caste. And most people don't. If you live in India, there is no way to escape caste. So, as you mentioned, there are two very distinct factions. Dipankar and me, for example, I think this is a great example of panelists. I was hiding my identity till I was 30. I was running away from my Dalitness. I was running away from my caste. I was lying about the fact that I was a Bhangi person till I was 30 years old, till just 5 years ago. Dipankar, on the other hand, was able to, acknowledge his identity, be very proud of that. And of course, I will, he's going to talk about his life experience, but the point I'm making is that not all of us have access to those ideas. Like you mentioned, like Dipankar mentioned, that incident in Kota, Rajasthan is one of, and I can only speak about my Rajasthani experience, I can speak about my experience in Delhi, is that there are two places where caste is very deeply entrenched. There are no subtleties. There is no hiding from caste. So being an open Bhangi person, people will literally not sit next to you. And that's the reality of it. Forget about being proud as a Dalit. Even saying the word Dalit, saying the word SC kind of is this huge bracket, right? Within the SC, people will ask, "Acha, SC to aap ho, but kaun se? Kaun se SC?" Yeah, what for people who don't understand Hindi, they'll ask, "Oh, so you're an SC, you're a scheduled caste person, but what kind?" And even within that, there are categories. There are subcastes, there are categories. They're about, okay, but even within Bhangis and Chamars, which are the two lowest, there is this descending, unfortunately, there is this descending scale of contempt. When I was raised to hide my caste, I was told, आप बोल सकते हो कि आप चमार हो, पर ये मत बोलना कि आप भंगी हो.
Bhangi ho.
What that means is you can tell people you're chamar, which is because the castes of Chamars, they have, and it's very heartening to see how they've gained what Dipankar was saying, cultural capital, social capital, economic capital. And it's political capital as well. So, when you say I'm a chamar, or when the Ginni Mahi song came out, where she is proudly owning her identity, there is a set precedent to do that. Until I, at least for me, started talking openly about being Bhangi, I really hadn't read any narratives. Of course, Jhutan exists. And now we have Bhavar Meghvanshi, but I didn't know them. And there was still this stigma attached to who I was. And this is not just my experience. This is the experience of many Bhangis within the movement. I met an activist when I was in Delhi a couple of years ago, I think right before the lockdown 2020. And she was a part of a Dalit activist movement. And I went there, openly talked about being Bhangi, and people were there from different class locations, different caste locations within being Dalit. And she said, I'm from a Chamar caste, and, we bonded. Later, she sent me a message on Facebook saying, I'm actually Bhangi, but I can't even tell my activist peers what my real caste is because I will be looked at differently. And she said, I was very taken aback to see you just say the word Bhangi with pride, because so far that has not been said. So when that's the basic level of unpacking our political identity where we are talking about, it's very different from expecting people to go to straight shame or to state pride, to stay. When I came out, one of the comments was, kya zarurat thi aapko caste chupane ki? Aap kyun chupa rahe ho? But nobody really knows what my life is. Nobody really knows what it's like to go somewhere and be rejected from a house application, to be rejected from your friends, to be rejected in your day-to-day lives. Nobody can live that experience for you. So that's why I want to come to the second part of the question. How do you come out? Don't. If you don't want to, don't. You don't have any kind of obligation to anyone to come out as Dalit, to come out as Bahujan. You are a person who, you're a tax-paying citizen, you are an individual, you exist. You do what is right for you. The only thing I would say, what I said earlier, educate yourself. Make yourself feel pride in your own identity without having to justify. Don't come out, because everybody's journeys are different. You cannot, there is this idea even within the Dalit movement where, there is this pressure that everybody should reveal who they are. Everybody should behave a certain way. Let's be very clear. We're 250 million plus people, Dalit Bahujans in the country. How can we expect everybody to think the same way? Everybody to vote the same way? Everybody to behave, worship the same person in the sky? People will be atheists. People will be Hindus. People will be Muslims. People will be Christians. They have the right to religion. They have the right to practice what they want. There shouldn't be any pressure. And I know exactly what I'm doing right now, and I'm sure I might get some hate from even within our people for saying that, but this is what I truly believe. This is the experience of people who don't have the privilege of associating themselves as Ambedkarites. So let's have a little compassion for people who don't want to come out, for people who can't access Ambedkar, for people who don't have the instinctive pride associated with being Dalit. Let's have empathy and let's understand and make space for many Dalit stories. Being in the movement, being a political entity is one story, but there are filmmakers, there are people who are teachers, there are people who are business people. So we need all kinds of Dalit folks. Of course, all of us have a political identity. We've talked about this. You're a political being, whether you like it or not, especially living in India today. And I see a lot of people already leaving YouTube chat, which is great. I think I made my point. But it's a political identity, but not everybody has to follow it. And only when we acknowledge this can we really move forward and create a space that's equal for everybody. Let's go back to what is the goal here. Is the goal here to shove a political identity down people's throats, or the goal here is to make everybody equal, is to create resources and opportunities for everybody? That is the main goal. It's not about ideology. How are we different from the so-called communists or the so-called socialists that we were talking about earlier, because their goal seems to be just, I want everybody to follow my identity. How is that different from a religion? How is that different from saying one God, follow this? No, we are Dalit Bahujan folks, and we have multiplicity in our identities, in our ideas, in our outlooks, in the way we look, in the way we talk, the way we speak. So let's understand and keep that goal in mind. Why are we working? Are we working so everybody listens to me and tells me I'm right? Or am I working to come on a platform and stretch it so more people like me can stand on it? That's what we should remember.
Amazing. I'm blown. I don't have words to add. Dipankar, please tell us.
So I completely agree with Yashika on her, like the question I mailed you guys, that we should talk about geographical locations of our different castes. Like I have experienced the North Indian experience. Like when we come to Delhi, and we see our very own friends who with whom we share our rooms. They using these words like bhangi, chamar in their family in front of their parents. Like we all have experienced this. Abhishek, you must have also experienced this. It and it's very prevalent in law schools. Like I have not got the degree yet, so I'll not speak about this in length. But we all know that how law schools function. So when a person hides his identity, like we should also acknowledge the path he has to travel when he owns his identity. Like for example, I am from Vidarbha. Even in Delhi, I can proudly, when my grandfather calls, I can proudly greet him with Jai Bhim, because I have that nurturing on me. I don't feel awkward around people around me. But yeah, I feel we can observe different gaze of people. But yeah, because the system in North and a major part of India never gave us the opportunity to feel proud of ourselves. Given that, what I feel about about being proud is that we should look up to our leaders. Like we can totally deny the fact that we are Dalits, because if we deny, you can't just deny and get out of this structure. The people will time and again tell you that you are this. And so when we read, because the Savarnas have their own ideals. Like Rajput will claim some Rajput king's name, a Maratha will claim Shivaji Maharaj's name, a Brahmin will claim XYZ. So we should we should tell our people to read Ambedkar, because we don't have many people. We have many people, but a mainstream character which Dr. Ambedkar has become now. If you don't teach your kids or your fellow folks about Baba Saheb, tomorrow there will be an inferiority complex because you don't belong there. That king XYZ doesn't belong from your category, which the very same people impose on you.
Yeah.
The caste system, we don't embrace caste system. It is imposed upon us.
Absolutely.
It's very, which we should definitely claim our leaders, and we should read them. So that's what I feel about. And what I agree with Yashika is that the people who belong from Vidarbha and Maharashtra, we feel extremely proud of ourselves, and we like misjudge many of our folks in North that he is not up to our level of proudness. But we should actually understand their position, because a person who stays in Delhi or Rajasthan specifically, he can't go into a market and shout Jai Bhim. Like
there'll be literal violence. There will be literal actual violence if that happens.
Yeah.
If we attempt to do that.
So we need to understand these points. Like we can't disregard them. They don't want, like everyone wants to be proud of his or her identity, but there are different geographical locations. There are different points which interferes. The way I can celebrate Ambedkar Jayanti in my house in Nagpur, I can I don't think Rajasthani Dalit can celebrate Ambedkar Jayanti in the way Nagpurians do in Nagpur. Because when you come to Nagpur on 14th April, you see the entire city blue. When you get out of the airport, the first statue you see is of Dr. Ambedkar. You get out of the railway station, the first picture you see is of Dr. Ambedkar. So you get that vibe once you enter Nagpur. But that's the privilege we have. So we don't get a right to see down upon our brothers and sisters. We should understand their geographical position, and the earlier and the and what I feel is when we take a movement to a height, like Yashika is doing, Suraj is doing, many of us are doing, we are actively doing that. And when there will be a point where you can proudly own your identity, then there will be no reason to pinpoint people that you should own your identity. They'll come out themselves. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much, Dipankar. So we need to have a better understanding of where we are coming from, where a person is coming from, and
like Dr. Ambedkar says, we should have fraternity. India should have fraternity. So we should have fraternity in our own community as well, to understand each other, to understand each other's geographical location, political location. And a Brahmin doesn't have a problem if a Brahmin joins BJP, Brahmin joins Congress, Brahmin joins Communist Party. We all know that what the high posts of parties are filled with, what are their caste location. We all know that. But when I've observed this in UP a lot, that when a Dalit person joins Congress or the Samajwadi Party, these BSP people, like them, moral police them, that how can you join this party? And but they don't understand that when this party will come into power, for token sake, but at least someone will get a voice in every government. And we have to be diplomatic now. We can't be stubborn in our own identities. They they were diplomatic all the time. They were diplomatic, and they made themselves a ruling caste.
Absolutely.
If we don't see a Brahmin PM, doesn't mean a Brahmin will doesn't have any say in politics or in parliament or in ministries.
That's a really great point, and that we should take it home with us, that we need to be diplomatic a little bit.
Exactly.
And we should read Ambedkar and we should teach Ambedkar as much as possible. Folks, we are running out of time. This is my last question to you. So we have called this session as the new age of Dalit writers. Please tell me, what is new about today's Dalit Bahujans writer, according to you? What is your personal opinion about it? Because we have seen Yashika, we have seen Dipankar, we have also seen Suraj. There are 3 different books in world today, and those who have read will definitely know what the difference I'm looking towards. But tell me something which is very striking about today's Dalit Bahujans writer.
First of all, the word new Dalit writing, only I think the way it describes is the current moment, because there has been Dalit writing. There has been Dalit writing by Dalits, and of course we have Dalit writing by Savarnas that has existed. And I don't mean to talk about that. I'm talking about us owning our own stories. There's Baby Kamble, there's Umila Pawar, and, all the other incredible Dalit writers who have been writing for a long time. The difference is that we are writing in English. That is the only difference. And we have to understand the colonial structural mindset of the Savarna population, but the cultural elite speak English. What we're now doing is we're speaking to them in their language, and not that it is their language. We're speaking to them in a language that they are enslaved to as well. Anybody who speaks English in their mind is more superior than them. So what we're doing is we're posing a challenge to them on their footing. They cannot dismiss us anymore, because it's a which in itself is is wrong on every level, that you dismiss vernacular language, you dismiss Hindi, or you dismiss any other regional language that people are expressing themselves in, or the charge against Dalit writers, which used to be you're very vulgar, or you're bearing your pain too much, or you're talking about your trauma too deeply. What we're doing is we are speaking to them in a language that is better than theirs. And the reason that we have that is because now we've had access to international avenues where, sure, Indians have access as well. You come to the US, you'll see it's just upper caste Savarnas everywhere. They're 98%. Over at least 90% are just Hindu Savarnas. That's the Indian American population in the US. And they've been writing their own narratives of representation and lack of representation, and how, whatever goes on in their circles. They've been doing that as well. But what we're doing is we are speaking about Dalit lives in a way that is impossible to ignore. And what we have as a backing for us is the very strong Dalit social media, Dalit young people who are now active on Twitter, who are active on Facebook, who are making this movement impossible to ignore, is what's really a key difference. I would not have a book today if it wasn't for Dalit Twitter. The reason I even had a book deal is because, of course, I was a journalist. People knew my work a little bit. So it created this idea that we had an interloper, we had a bhangi between us this whole time, but people who were angry. They couldn't do anything about it. Or people who were, or sort of have anti-caste sensibilities were also kind of shocked. And we do have to acknowledge that there are people who do have anti-caste sensibilities, because we cannot, it takes a village, and it does indeed take a village for us. So we have to create conversations around how can we extend this sensibility outside of the Dalit movement as well. But coming back to my point, I think it's important that we acknowledge that what we're doing in this moment is posing a straight threat to the Savarna sensibility with our people on social media, with our people making ourselves heard. We've made ourselves impossible to ignore. Suraj is in Harvard. He got a book deal here. That's why he got a book deal back in India. I was already had kind of a presence online. I already had like more than 20,000 followers on Twitter before I came out as Dalit. So that also became like a conversation on its own. It was impossible to ignore. And I think what we've done, and smartly enough, is that we are using these tactics against the establishment. And that's the key difference, right? Dalit writing has always existed. Now what doing is smart, challenging Dalit writing in a way that Savarnas cannot say no to. That's the difference.
Thank you so much. Dipankar, what do you think?
Yeah, so I think that Dalit writing has always been there, like in Maharashtra, the Saint movement, Raidas, Chokha Mera and all. But the difference here is now we are striving to remove the prefix of Dalit now. So now, like, there has been memos, there have been academic book like Suraj, and a biography like mine. So now in future the discourse should be to remove the prefix of Dalit and let this just be a literature. And like exactly yesterday one person literally texted me this, that why do you Savarna person, he was a Savarna person, so he texted me that why do you write Dalit writers and all. So I texted him back that I will decide when to remove this suffix, but it's not you, it will be us who will decide when to remove this prefix. So also there has been the change which has come is, like Yashika pointed, is that today we write in English, like Suraj writes amazingly in English, Yashika writes amazingly in English. I'll not name myself because I took a very long time to write this book. So but before us, like the regional writers like Javi Pawar, Om Prakash Valmiki in North, and the southern writers, they were not able to break the boundaries of their state because of the regional language. And in English, if not entirely the masses, but it reaches the intellectual, like the literate, I'll not say intellectual, but literate audience of our people in different states and different countries. So that's the change which I have observed, and it's very positive because, and I'll like Professor Kancha Ilaya suggests that we should strive for English now. And I completely agree that English, like when we are starting to claim English, now this entire Hindi and regional narrative is coming. So these upper caste people, they know how to patronize the country when it's necessary to, when the lower caste and not oppressed caste, whenever they try to break the ceiling, they know how to come with a patronizing rhetoric and narrative that to bring in something national into it, and then just give the people moral policing. So what I mean to say is that 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line, we'll also have fictional books written by our authors and all, because the representation in fictional books is very is almost negligible, because the authors we see in our mainstream bookstores are this B gang, which we call them B gang. So tomorrow when we go to a bookstore and a person is not interested in reading a historical book, a academic book, or a memoir, he should get a entertaining book from our side also, because our lives are also entertaining. Exactly. If you read Namdev Dosa's life, because he was a Dalit, his literature was shifted towards the Dalit literature, but how beautifully Namdev writes his poems. Like had a person been an upper caste, and he would have talked about the red light areas of Mumbai, like Kamatipura and all, he would have got much more recognition than anyone else. So that's what I'm saying is that also this bookstore culture, like I had to order Yashika's book on Amazon because I couldn't find it anywhere in Nagpur. And if I couldn't find it in Nagpur, then except Delhi and the mainstream cities, the metro cities, a person who wants to go to a bookstore and buy a book, he'll never find Yashika's book or Suraj book, or mine to he'll never find. But the access of book, like like Chetan Bhagat or some upper caste person writes a book, within 2-3 days his books come to a bookstore, and you can access. Like the problem is also about access. So tomorrow we have to increase the accessibility of our literature, and when when, like I'm talking about utopia, when we all become equal, then we'll try to remove that prefix of Dalit literature.
So today's
very well said, Dipankar. That was amazing. Yeah, totally.
Today's Dalit is fearless. And Suraj keeps on saying that time and again and in different ways, that now you can't challenge me because I am in your position from where I can speak, and you will have to listen. So be
in your eyes.
In your eyes, yeah. Okay, I'm out of questions. I have audience questions here. I'll just start shooting it. Please feel free, whoever wants to respond. And I don't think these are generally asked to one panelist. So the first question is by Nikhil Sehra. He says that as the panelists have been talking about lack of courage and confidence of identity in Dalit folks, especially it is with respect to writing. We are all extremely underconfident and frightened to send our writings anywhere. There are now few Dalit spaces where we can try and publish our pieces, but how should we break through this confidence to reach to all media and push our writings on any platform, especially Savarna run spaces?
You don't need confidence. I will tell you that. You do not need confidence. Look at the Savarnas who are employed in English newspapers. There was a clip circulating just yesterday for Hindustan Times. It was a terribly written paragraph. You don't need confidence. You don't even need English. Forget qualifications, just apply. And I know this, I can only say this in a Dalit Bahujan space. So Dalits and Bahujan people, all my people listening to me, forget thinking that you are not qualified enough. You already are, because guess what? You have this incredible perspective that is not that has not been heard, that has not been talked about, that has not been read. Language, ultimately, what is language? It's just a tool to communicate. We've created these colonial, aspects around language, that it has to be perfect, that your grammar cannot falter, that you have to speak in a clipped accent. F all that. You don't need that. What you need is your original perspective. Language ultimately is an imperialist, colonialist tool that is here to keep us down. So when you think about confidence, you don't need confidence. You just need to be you. And of course, I am mindful while giving you this advice that it might not be most productive. But what you do is believe in yourself first, that's where the place that you're coming from. After you do that, then equip yourself with the skills that is necessary. Read what's coming out of a certain publication. For example, if you want to write for Vogue magazine, and I do have a lot of experience writing in fashion, you want to write for Vogue magazine, read the magazine, see what they're covering, and present them a pitch that will work in them. That is an advice that is given across the world to all aspiring journalists. This is not a difference between Dalit versus Bahujan, or Savarna, or this is not white folks versus black folks. This is just anybody applying. Read the material that is being given to you. You want to write for Scroll, read what kind of story Scroll publishes, read the level of writing. Think about an interesting idea that the editor might find attractive and present yourself. And of course, I'm not saying you don't have to work for yourself, but you don't need confidence, because there are so many terrible copy editors in all these English language mainstream so-called media who don't speak better English than you do. So what you need is just to own your own story, own your perspective, put in the hard work. Definitely, you will need to work harder. And I do have to tell you, you will need to work twice as hard, because they will not accept us on our own terms. But make sure that you are foolproof. Your work is so good that they can't deny you. Do the homework, but you don't need confidence. Understand that you're valid enough.
All right. Dipankar, would you like to take a shot at it?
Sorry?
Would you like to go answer this question?
Which question? It was for Yashika, right?
No, it was for both of you, I think. So
okay. I missed the question, if you can.
Should I?
If you can repeat.
All right. So just a minute. Yeah, I'll have to go back to
I'm
this question.
You.
It's fine. It's just my laptop. So as the panelists have been talking about the lack of courage and confidence of identity in Dalit folks, and especially it is with respect to writing, we are all extremely underconfident and frightened to send our writings anywhere. There are now few Dalit spaces where we can try and publish our pieces. But how should we break through this confidence and to reach to all media and push our writings to any platform, and especially Savarna-run platforms?
Yeah, exactly. Even I have been victim of this, because I sent almost 3 to 4 articles, one to Live Law, Scroll, First Post, and I always got rejected. And then after a certain time, I actually stopped sending them articles. I sent it to Roundtable India and Velivada, because they only remember us when there's an issue. Like for example, when Hathras happened, they would have accommodated the Dalit writer. But in normal course of time, if you want to comment on anything that is outside our identity, then they actually don't give us. They never give us space. They want us only to speak when we are asked to speak. So that so there I want to say that now we should actually try to build our own spaces. Like the Roundtable is a space, Velivada is a space, but we are still lacking in like television space, like the news channels and all. They only call our intellectuals and our thinkers when there's a caste-based issue. They never call us when the nation. So are you understanding that when there's a national issue, they never call our folks, because they don't consider us a part of their nation. On national issues, only the Savarnas can speak, and when there's an Adivasi issue or Dalit issue, then only Dalit and Adivasis will speak. So the point here is, now we should actually stop writing and doing for them. And you can write for New York Times and all. They are, uh, if you attain that level of writing, but we should collectively boycott these Savarna places and build our own places, because 70 years down the line, we don't have any mainstream media space where uh, a person can send his article, or he can get a revert back in guidance that you should do this in your article, and then you are good to go. So now we should try to build our own spaces, like in news channel, uh, online portal, newspaper, because we don't have a representation here. So that's what I suggest. And this is not an immediate solution, I know. This will take its own time, but that should be our aim now.
All right. So take your chances. Keep sending your writings to different portals. Dipankar says that build your own sources, find your own sources, and write more and send to these Dalit-led portals. For your information, I think Dipankar had already mentioned about it. Panther's Paw is a project which has been run by Yogesh Matre and Yogesh, if I'm not wrong, right? So,
yeah, Yogesh.
So do check it out. There are a number of bits, and
like
cover art.
Yogi Panthers Paw publication is self-built. Like it's our publication house, so you'll never get rejected from there. He'll guide you, obviously, and then
definitely.
Yeah.
So we have our second question, and it's in two parts. So Pranav Dhawan asks to both of you that Ambedkar admonished educated Dalits who distanced themselves from the community upliftment and amelioration effort. So, is it not desirable for Dalit folks to hold relatively privileged members of their community accountable for some degree of social empowerment? Ambedkar was impatient about the pace of social transformation and made supreme sacrifices. So, why should his more advantageous descendants not be asked to remain accountable by relatively unprivileged Dalit folks? This is the first part of the question. I'll read the second part whenever you are comfortable.
Sure. So actually, people keep quoting this out of context. Yeah, you should know the context of this this thing, that when Dr. Ambedkar admonished educated Dalits, because he was saying in this this in context of actually he when he met Viceroy of India, he actually told him that you have Banaras Hindu University for Hindus, you have Aligarh Muslim universities for Muslim, but you have nothing for us. So Viceroy asked him, what should I do for you? So Dr. Ambedkar told him that I'll send every year 20 students from my community, and they'll go and get education from higher education from abroad and come back. So the idea in Dr. Ambedkar's mind was, if I got access to Columbia, I got access to LSE, and I could bring such a revolution. So when more students like me go to go for a higher education in abroad, what kind of revolution will we build? So when they came back, few got into civil services, few got into business, and few started stock marketing in Bombay BAC. So that was his the comment was in their regard. It was in a context. It doesn't mean that educated Dalits, and like Dalits should not get educated, and every educated Dalit betrays the cause. So this needs to it needs to be interpreted in a context, because out of context anything may sound like bizarre.
All right.
So
That's really excellently put, Dipankar. I didn't even need to say that because I know that this is a question that has been posed to me many, many times, and I'm sure you faced it on your end as well. Very excellently put, and I agree. First of all, it's very Ambedkar, from my limited understanding, and I've already been very open. I'm a scholar from Ambedkar only for the past 5 years, and I have written a book about it, but only with limited understanding, not compared to people's lived experiences. However, we need to understand Ambedkar in the context of what he was saying. We cannot just take any quote and say it applies to everybody, just like what Dipankar said. Beyond that, educated Dalits are this kind of beacon for focus for everybody. Savarnas will point us out. Dalits themselves will point us out. The whole society is just focused on that. Let's think about how many educated Dalits are there in terms of the total population of the population that exists. Sure, we should be held accountable, and we are, which is why we are in these spaces, right? Which is why you see Dipankar, which is why you see me, which is why you see Suraj, there's Anurag. How much money do you think we are getting from this? I barely got enough money from the book to make my 1 month rent in New York. And I worked on this book for 4 years, just to give you a little bit of a context. We're not doing this for money. We are doing this because we feel a social obligation to do this for our people, to be able to create this kind of platform that we didn't get. It's a hard job to do as it is. The kind of brickbats, the daily threats, the abuses that we all of us face, it's a huge demand to ask every educated Dalit to be accountable and put yourself on the line. Why? And I understand that it's important to hold educated folks accountable, but why are we holding our own people accountable and not Savarnas? We're not the ones who created the system. We are barely struggling to get out of the system. Let us give ourselves a moment to breathe, a generation to breathe, to enjoy these benefits and privileges we have worked so hard for. Somebody that educated Dalit so-called has a Lamborghini, which everybody seems to have a problem of for. I think there might be 3 or 4 people. I mean, I could be wrong, but they're not that many educated Dalits who roam in BMWs and Mercs and Lamborghinis, and they're the focus of the entire country of 1.2 billion people. Why is that? Let's think about these questions instead of just saying, let's hold educated Dalits accountable. We are accountable. We are already accountable. That is why we are here. That is why you see the changes that you're seeing right now, if I may say so myself, is because of educated Dalits. Uneducated Dalits, unfortunately, because of this system, don't even have the opportunities that we have. The change that you are witnessing, the people like Dipankar, people like Suraj, they are educated Dalits. We are educated Dalits, and we are accountable. To say that if some Dalit person has somehow, and we know as Dalits, we know as Bahujans, we know it involves immense sacrifice, whether it is our generation or a previous generation, to reach this point. And the social stigma and the untouchability and the kind of discrimination that we feel, it never goes away. We are already struggling and dealing with our own battles. Let us have solidarity with our people. Yes, hold educated Dalits accountable, but also have solidarity for Dalits. Understand who are we working against. We're just a handful. Like Dipankar said, we are given the permission to speak only at a certain times. We don't have any power. We really don't have any power at all. Whatever that you see around you is the effort of people who are Dalit, who have struggled to create this platform. It was not handed to us. So let's focus on the system. Let's focus on Savarnas, who, by the way, let me make it very clear, this is a very capitalist project to create this kind of scarcity of opportunities that, there is a whole pie, but we only have a slice. And within that slice, you have to share. So you keep fighting with each other. You keep pointing fingers. You keep saying, you have a little more than I do. You have 10 rupees. I only have 1. That's not what we need to talk about. We need to talk about people who have 1 billion plus. Let's take the resources from them. Let's talk about attacking, challenging, targeting them, not the person who struggled and got 10 rupees and you still have 1. The 10 plus 1 needs to be 11 and struggle against the 1 billion plus, if that makes sense. So that's, this reframing is it's very convenient Savarna tactic. Let's hold educated Dalits accountable. Man, this is an talent all of educated Dalits. That's why we're already doing the labor to bring you this conversation for free. That's our labor. That's us being held accountable.
Thank you so much, Dipankar and Yashika. There's a second question by Pranav, and specifically for Dipankar. Considering especially Dipankar's work, how can a politically astute response to anti-reservation discourse be framed? What I mean to say, Pranav says that what I mean is to reach an end where the creamy layer argument is summarily rejected and elite presence in Dalit community should be explicitly celebrated.
So every one of us, like every scheduled caste, scheduled tribe student, has been through this phase where he tries to accommodate with different arguments to defend his admission, his reservation, which his or her people get in the institutes and government services. But after a certain time, actually after second or third year, I actually never paid attention to this argument because as Yashika said, we are handful people who have progressed and who are writing or who are earning money, and there's a pickpointing when Savarnas discuss and reservation, that I know this person, his father was IPS, IS, and he got reservation. So actually, I'll suggest everyone that try as much as you can to not get into this argument of reservation, because reservation is not our issue. It's a upper caste issue. Let them deal and let them cry in their own spaces. You don't need to engage into don't need to go on internet and search what arguments I can frame for reservation and all. Literally, I've stopped engaging in this debate of reservation. That isn't my problem. That's your problem. I'll talk about atrocities. I'll talk about the economical, social, and political capital which you people have. I'll talk about them. Why should I talk about your problem when you don't talk about my people's atrocity, when you don't talk about the political, social, and economic capital of your people? Why should I talk about reservation with you? So that's the only escape you have, and I'll say bluntly refuse to talk about reservation. What they do is, their politics is just to make you feel that you are doing something wrong in your life by getting a seat and studying in a premier institute. So let's just give them no joy, no pleasure of getting ourselves guilty or wearing a guilty tie. So let's just not give them, tell them straightly into their face that we are not going to discuss this issue. What's the issues which we have, we'll only talk about that.
Absolutely. And if I may add something, Dipankar, very well put. Now, the question is not for me, but I do want to say that along with that, and this is a really good point about just not taking the shame that they try to inflict on us. They will try and say that we don't belong here. Reservations become this whole idea that this is a way to, again, the educated Dalit point, to bring us down, to make us feel guilty, to let us know that we don't belong in this space. But if there is one thing you want to tell these Savarnas when they talk about creamy layer, is to talk about the reservation of land that they've had for generations, that we were not given access to. So when they give up their reservation on land, we will give up our reservation, the small sliver of reservation constitutional right that we've been given just 70 years ago, versus the thousands of years of reservation privilege on culture, reservation privilege on social issues. I was just reading this idea about, there's a small community where Tagore is from, where Satyajit Ray is from in Bengal. Yeah, they're a small community, but look at the kind of privilege, the reservation privilege that they've had on culture. When that kind of privilege is diluted, then you come to us and talk about our small reservation privilege in government jobs, in government educational institutes. And let's be very clear, these reservation seats are mostly left empty because the Savarnas who are holding these posts are vindictive. They allow the PhDs to lapse. They allow the scholarships to lapse. They intentionally keep these seats empty. What kind of reservation are you talking about when it's not even implied on the ground? What is this argument that it's been enough time, where the policy itself is not working, when it's a fractured system? So let's focus on that instead of asking, what are we going to do about reservation? Oh, you took it for 3 generations. Now stop doing it. No, give up your land that was not allowed to me and my forefathers, and then we will talk about. Give up your cultural privilege. Give up the money that you have made by exploiting us and our people. Give us fair wages. Give us reparations. Thank God we're asking only for reservation and not reparations, because that time's coming very soon.
Thank you so much.
Pranav, when these people bring up the debate of creamy layer, do ask them next time that why don't Supreme Court judges apply creamy layer to themselves? Why are they from certain families and they from certain locations?
Absolutely.
And in every sphere, why don't they
bureaucracy, judiciary, media? Where is the creamy layer in media channels?
Exactly.
Why
don't they apply creamy layer to their own category? If you are so concerned about poor upper caste people, apply creamy layer to your own category.
Totally, absolutely great.
The audience is loving the conversation which we are having right now, but we definitely have to move on. Third question is by Tara. She says that Savarna people, a person who is always aspiring ally, I was wondering what efforts can we make as allies beyond economic redistribution? What does it mean for us to aid in creating safe spaces? What would these spaces look like? And what would be the role of the privileged?
The role of the privileged. Dipankar, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, sure. I just want to say, I'll finish in 2 minutes. So this entire ally thing has been a hoax for me, because recently we saw things on Instagram. We all know that. I don't need to name people. So we know that when there's a content for where they can gain followers and all, they'll speak your narrative. Like when the Hathras case happened, the so-called ally influencers made videos on Hathras and all, and then few days back we saw their casteist ableist behavior on social media. So for me, this entire thing of ally has been a hoax. So I don't really consider that there will be a real ally for us, because
okay.
I respect and am inspired by Dipankar's rage, like somebody mentioned in the comments, so much. It's incredible. And these are our young, educated Dalits. Look at this. Who is people who want to hold educated Dalits accountable? They're doing their job. Let's, first of all, I do want to say that. As far as spaces of allyship, it's a good idea, and there's this idea of privilege, the idea of being allies. It's been around, especially in the Western discourse, for 20 years now. And that's bleeding into our current Indian discourse as well. And the sentiment, I do respect that. I think where the questions coming from, the intent is a good intent. And let's start from there. Let's assume that the people who are anti-caste want to make a difference. But you have to be very careful and mindful of how you are making that difference. First of all, yes, the privilege is a huge part. So examine and unpack your own privilege maybe first before wanting to create spaces for us. We do have spaces. We will create our own spaces, and we do appreciate you joining them. But maybe create spaces for restitution within your own families and friends. How to be anti-caste there. How do you acknowledge and hold your circle of friends accountable so that they have anti-caste sensibilities? Work within your own communities. We need your allyship by doing that work, because we don't want to be in that muck of privilege and caste discrimination and casteism. That is your world. Sort that self out first. Put that in order and then support us the best we can. We don't want your Instagram reshares. We don't want our stories on, we don't want our posts on your stories. You do it, it's great. It feels amazing. We're happy the word is getting out. But really unpack your own casteism. Before you make these Insta reels, think about who you're targeting. Think about why you even in this. Is this because our whole worldview is shaped by caste? Maybe return to books. That would be my really big advice. Don't just rely on social media activism, because there's really nuances lost on Twitter, nuances lost on Instagram.
Exactly.
Read books, read Black feminist authors. Don't just, expand your worldview. Think about how these systems of race and privilege and oppression and discrimination exist across the world. And then think about where your role is. I think allyship looks like a lot of thinking and doing work on yourself first before you can create spaces for us. We don't want safe spaces. It will be a safe space if you just do the work within yourself. That's the safe space. And we do appreciate the support, but I respect Dipankar's rage. A lot of us are disillusioned. A lot of us are feeling that we're just being used. Our narratives that we've created so painstakingly over the past few years are now being capitalized for content and follows and likes and shares. We're not your narrative we're not your woke narrative. So do the work.
Thank you so much. I hope that most of these the questions have been answered. I'm not missing any, so we don't have any questions as of now.
Can I just add one thing? To whoever asked this allyship question, you might just want to tune in on 17th for another panel in which we are discussing how to be an ally. So yes, that was it.
Okay, so personally, it's been great to speak to you. I actually was very nervous. I'll be very honest.
Yeah, even I was nervous, like being on a panel with Yashika.
Dipankar, I am so blown away by how brilliant your ideas are. There is no need to be nervous. You are really hope for so many of us. The clarity of ideology that you have, the compassion, the empathy. I mean, 3 cheers and kudos. I'm so proud of you. Really, really good to be here.
I don't know how to thank you guys, but it's been really great to have you here. It's been really awesome, like the kind of questions we had and the kind of questions which audience asked. Lovely to be here. Anmol, please do the word of thanks. I'm incapable of saying anything right now.
So yes, again, thank you, Yashika. Thank you, Dipankar, for doing this, and Abhishek, of course. Thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight. It was a great start for Dalit Fest. It's our first time we're doing something on this scale, and we hope to continue to do so with your support, of course. Again, I'm at a loss of word here. I'm really blown away by both the panelists and the conversation we had over the past 1.5 hours. Everybody here on YouTube and on Zoom, thank you, everybody. Hope to see you again sometime, maybe physically. We get to invite Yashika and Dipankar on campus and have them again talk to all of us here. So yeah, thank you for joining, and happy Dalit History Month, happy Ambedkar Jayanti in advance. Jai Bhim, Jai Savitri. Thank you.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank
Bye.
You. Bye.
Bye-bye.